getting started. What's up, people? I missed you. Share the show. Let them know I'm back. Hit that like, everybody. So are we still up on Instagram? I gotta check. Something funky just happened.
I'm a dope.
Great. Maybe I should I push this button?
Oh yeah, that's normal.
Okay. Vintage, let me know. The browser crashed, so I couldn't check. Let's see if this works.
That was really cool, by the way.
There you go.
That's great psychology. Why don't you just say something bad about my mother?
Get started. I'm still open. Look, okay. Welcome to the show, everybody. It's Hal Sparks Mornings, Megaworldwide. It's just me. It's just you. It's just us this morning because I just landed about a little over just an hour and 10 minutes ago, flying in from Tampa, Florida. By the way, I'm Hal Sparks. I will be your host for Hal Sparks Mornings, Megaworldwide. We will have a guest in the second hour. It'll be our dear friend Cliff Schecter from Cliff's Edge on YouTube. Please subscribe to his channel, and he'll be with us for the first half hour of the second show. I'm probably only going to do 90 minutes because I will probably crash from the adrenaline rush that's keeping me, I suppose, on my feet for a time. Are my arms tired? No, because I didn't swim. I flew. Although it was Spirit Airlines, so my neck and lower back are killing me, if you must know. But a great time was had overall. As a matter of fact, let me open up. Did it reopen my note thingy? It did. Hold on. I can show you guys some pics from live stream tools. Then we go down to this page, and I just decided to do this, and I think this will work. Let me see if this will work. Yeah, should work. So first of all, there's Courtney. Courtney coordinates the punchlines and backlines. That's the empty hotel restaurant that they kept open for all the bands till like 3 a.m. I think this picture was taken at 2 a.m. on Friday. Yeah. She's been great for this whole thing. Let me see if hold on, let me jump through. Okay, here's the controls on it. This is me, and that's Tyson. Tyson did the keyboards for all of our Nerd Halen songs, and he also coordinates a ton of he lives in Nashville. He does a jam there, kind of like the one I do. Great dude. And that in the middle is Chip Zanuff from Enough's Enough, of Zanuff, part of the Enough's Enough. And you can never really get enough of Chip Zanuff because he's there. Like his wife was with him, and she calls him Big Bird. The rest of us or describes him as Big Bird. The rest of us describe him as sort of Snuffleupagus. We're not quite sure if he's a figment of our imagination or something, but he sings like a bird and talks like this. It's amazing. Really talented guy, sweetheart. Always a fun conversation, and the stories never stop. He was talking to Eric Singer. I was about to go home, to my hotel room. I was about to go to sleep. When I arrived on Friday, I got in, I red-eyed in, and then I just basically slept the day away because I was in a coma and couldn't, I did the morning show, and I finally got up, and I'm like, I must eat and try to get my body on some sort of a clock. And then right as I'm about to go back, I'll go to normal bed. It's like good. I'll be very professional. It's 11:30 at night, and I will probably be able to sleep through the night. And I've got to do this brunch in the morning. It was this. I'll show a picture of that in a second. And the guy who's running it says, "Hey, are you here? Did you make it?" And I'm like, "Yes, I'm awesome." And he goes, "I'm down in the bar in the hotel with a bunch of the musicians. Why don't you come on down?" And I'm like, "Okay, well, I should probably go down and say a perfunctory hello, at the very least." And so I went down there, and I was there till 2 o'clock in the morning. As a matter, I was there so late that Neil, the guy who ran the thing, who's a great guy, the next morning apparently was going, I don't know if Hal's going to make the brunch thing, because I left the bar at 2 o'clock and he was still there. I'm like, "Do you have any idea who you're talking to?" They call me Mr. Hands. I'm a total professional. So, okay, this was the brunch the next morning. So I obviously made it. That's Jean Beauvoir. That's Bruce Kulick, and that's his wife, Lisa. And I'm just I have my little table right here so I could coordinate. And they had breakfast with everybody, and there was in this little conference room area. It was adorable. And it was a little disorganized, to say the least, so I organized it. I went table to table and told everybody we're going to have a limited time for questions. So if you have a question at the table, don't ask until I come there. And I will walk table to table, and then you guys will do this, right? And it worked out really great. Although it was supposed to be from 11 a.m. to 12:30, and we didn't find out till 12:20 that there was supposed to be a picture and autograph signing that went with it, which obviously you cannot do in 10 minutes. So that was fun. So next year I'm bringing a clipboard. That said, wait, here we go. I'll scroll down here. Yeah, there you go. So I went through and took a couple of pictures of them hanging out, and the second you sat them down next to each other, they started chit-chatting, just on and on and on and on and on. For those of you who don't know, on the album, or care, and quite frankly, if you don't, you should, there's a Kiss album called Asylum, and it was Bruce's first record as an official member of the band. And Jean Beauvoir, this guy right here, this fella right here, co-wrote a couple of songs on there, specifically All Night, but which was Camden's favorite song for a little while, which was awkward. And then my favorite song off that album, which is called Who Wants to Be Lonely, he co-wrote that with Paul. And they're really good friends. They've been friends for a long time. They were friends well before they started writing music together. And for those of you that go back to like 70s rock, why's my overhead light on? This is just light. For those of us who go back to like 70s rock, you might recognize Jean Beauvoir from being in he was in the Plasmatics. He was the bass player in the Plasmatics. And if you don't know what the Plasmatics are, I understand, and I'm sorry. But Wendy O. Williams was the lead singer of the Plasmatics. She dated / bumped uglies, I heard, with Gene for a little while, which is true of almost everybody. But Wendy O. Williams famously had a W tattooed on each bum cheek. So you can just guess where the O was. Just a little thing. But she was a force of nature, and the Plasmatics were amazing. And Jean Beauvoir was a member of the Plasmatics. He was also why Doug Pinnick started wearing a mohawk, only he had a black mohawk instead of a blonde mohawk, because he was like, that looks really cool. And they kind of influenced each other, and now they're friends, and they've been friends for a while. It's just lovely. And I'll show you in a second. So that was, these were like, and this is all for cancer charity. This is the Kiss Cancer Goodbye charity. There'll be another one next year. I will probably next year lead a large pilgrimage of sparklers to it, wherever it ends up. It may be in Vegas, fingers crossed. I think that's where they're going to do it. So if that's the case, then we'll coordinate a Nerd Halen show and some other stuff and whatever. But there's Bruce, and there's Jean, and there's they're posing with Lisa, which is Bruce's wife. So I'm fairly certain they could picture that. And there we are. And so I made that little graphic for us and posted it on my Instagram because I'm cool like that. There you go. Then that's Todd Kearns. I took a picture of him backstage where he was taping his picks onto his neck. And if you don't know Todd Kearns, shame on you. That's a side view. That's Tyson. It's over Tyson's shoulder. And that's Zach Throne right there. Zach was on the show The Heights. Let's see if I can find a picture of. Remember that? See if I can find the. Yeah. Remember that song, How Do You Talk to an Angel? And is that what it is? Was that the song from it? I think so. Yeah. So Zach did a bunch of singing on that. Dude sings like a bird. He's a lovely person. He plays in like Ace's band, Ace Frehley's band sometimes, and they've all been on tour with him or whatever. It's the weirdest thing ever. The guy from The Heights but he can sound just like Gene Simmons. Even in his, first of all, he sings really high and he's got an amazing voice of his own, but he can also imitate Gene really well. So he tours with Ace and does the Gene songs like Deuce and stuff like that. And he even talks like Gene when he's doing the rap in between songs. So when they do Domino or something. Anyways, it's just really fun. And I sang background vocals, so I hung around on the side over here, and then I joined Zach at his mic for The Elder. And then on Alive 2, I sang background on that as well. That's Bruce. That's Todd Kearns. That was from Soundcheck. Me just taking pictures of gear because I was curious. There's Chris Jericho, who I have not seen since Celebrity Duets, who showed up and brought his band Quarantine, which is his Kiss cover band that does, I want to say just Lick It Up. And something else, they just did this Kiss cover thing during quarantine, and then it became a breakout thing that he does. So anyways, he and I were on Celebrity Duets together, and I haven't seen him since, really. And he's a great dude, and we get along really well, and I'm sure we differ on politics, clearly, but, bridges can be built. And that said, look for some Fozzy or Quarantine / Nerd Halen shows in the future, which would be really cool. And then, random as hell, in the most wonderful, wonderful turn of events, I know that King's X is playing in Florida, but they were really far away. They were like I don't know, Miami or something, or Naples or wherever it was. Okay, I don't know I do not know my Florida geography because every time I go, Summer drives around, and knows where everything is. So it's one of those things where if I ever needed to learn, I would, but I don't care. I usually fly into Florida to one town, do my show, and split. So King's X turned out they were playing in Fort Myers, which is about an hour and 20 minutes south of where we were in Sarasota for the Kiss Cancer Goodbye, and they were playing on Sunday night, last night, at this place. And so I and one of the other guys that used to coordinate the jam, who happened to be this guy, Rob, and I drove down in my rental car and surprised Doug and Ty and Jerry and went and saw them live. And for those of you who don't know, this is King's X. And there's Jerry, who is one of the most amazing drummers that's ever lived, is a super sweet human being. I adore him. He's a great guy. He also, when he's playing, you kind of get this feeling like if Charles Manson had become a drummer instead of doing what he did, he would have been Jerry. Because he's a crazy man while he's playing, and there's almost a mad insanity to his playing and his style, but he's just a beast, and it's so great. And the technicality of the band is off the charts. It's like the Beatles meet Grand Funk Railroad or the Commodores even, and Metallica, and there's like all these influences converging, and we were all, Ty's a huge Kiss fan when he was growing up, and we yapped about that a bunch. And Doug, I love. He's one of the most wonderful people in the whole world. And our lives crisscrossed because he came out of the closet late 90s, mid to late 90s, and they used to be kind of thought of as a Christian band, and the entire fan base turned on them because of that. And turned on him in particular, and it was particularly brutal, and Queer as Folk in some ways helped him kind of get his self-esteem back together a little bit and help him start dating again and seeing himself as a viable person, a little bit in the dating world, I guess. And there's a song by King's X called "I'll Never Be the Same" off of Gretchen Goes to Nebraska that did the same for me as a little straight boy. So we sort of traded favors. We traded the same favor. His art helped me in that area as a straight kid, and mine helped him as a gay man. And that, I can't think of a more beautiful artistic exchange if I tried. And on top of that, Ty is just an incredible guitar player and a really sweet human being. And you've heard probably, if you listen to the radio show with Johnny, we go off on how great Ty is, both technically, artistically, and as a human being. And we've been fans of them since high school, Johnny and I. And Johnny and Ty have become really close. They become like genuinely friendly. And I can't tell you how happy that makes me to see that happen. Right? So it's a wonderful thing to see, right? You're very picky. Jimi Hendrix, The Who, Brian Ferry, Jericho. Okay, well, Al B, if you're very picky, listen to Ty's playing. Do you remember The Awful Truth? I know a lot of things called The Awful Truth. There was a series. There was a movie. There's there's a Chinese movie called The Awful Truth. Is that what you mean? Anyways, Christian music gets a bad rap. I agree. I mean, I listened to David Meese when I was a kid. I went to one of his shows, and I'm a big Striper fan, especially from back in the day when I was a Christian, more actively, as it were. And but regardless, they were touring, and we just lucked out to be there. Oh, yeah. Oh, Galactic Cowboys. Yes, of course. They had the same, the Galactic Cowboys and King's X had the same, main producer manager for a while. Anyways, but just killed it. It was wonderful, and got to hang out with them afterwards and talk probably later than I should have because we had to drive back to Sarasota. I had to pack. I napped for about 45 minutes off and on. I never really got to sleep. And then I drove to Tampa because my flight was at 5:45 a.m. this morning. And so I had to basically leave the hotel no later than 3 to drive there because it's about an hour and plus. At that time it was about an hour. And I got there kind of just in time. So I think that's it. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then they have a song called "We Were Born to Be Loved," and the ending of it is so complicated that it's amazing. They play it that anybody can play it at all and make it sound as big as they do, because it's just 3 guys. But the idea that they don't even look at each other for cues is a musical miracle. So, anyways, that was part of my weekend. That's not all of it, obviously. Let me bring in the chat room. Cliff Schecter is going to join us second hour for for a half an hour, and then I'm probably, when he's done, I'm going to call it for the day, and then I'll see you guys this afternoon, and I'll be on a little early this afternoon, probably 2:30, because I want to cover the entire Meet the Press interview with Trump and do the whole thing, and it's like they released the unedited or the extended version of it, which is like an hour and 16 minutes. So I'm going to cover the whole thing. Anyways, I had a lovely time this weekend. The people were really great. Next time I would like to help them organizationally a little more if I could. I don't want to, and it's always hard when you're kind of the new kid on the block, that you don't want to take over somebody's thing or make them feel like you are, because I've realized a little bit, and this is becoming a dominant theme in the internet world as well, as I try not to, I make a real case to not step on my fellow streamers' toes if they're coming on the air, and I don't want to, the Major or somebody like that, and I'm going long, I try to get out so I'm not stepping on his program, right? So we can all rise together. And so I take Brian had a 4-hour marathon. That's what it takes. Yes, Hal Sparks, rock and roll administrator. That'd be a great gig. I would do that. But people fight very hard for their point of authority. People fight very hard for their, especially if something brings them value in their life. You know what I mean? And you don't want to take that away from somebody, especially when it's a charity thing. You don't want to, you don't want to associate any of the charity work or the good stuff that you do with bad memories of stuff. You don't want to make any of that difficult because it's already difficult. So anything you could do to make it easier, but without stepping on their toes or taking some of the joy that they have in it. And a lot of it is these relationships with everybody that's there. And you don't want to step in front of those things, right? You don't want to step between the person running it and the relationships they have with the people that are there. And so anyways, I always find that to be, maybe I overcompensate in those areas. Maybe I'm too deferential. Maybe I'm too sensitive to that. I don't have that feeling, so maybe I don't recognize it, or I'm overly protective of it in other people because it doesn't bother me at all. I'm just terrible at delegating, but mainly, yeah, Hal Sparks bossy pants, exactly. Is that I don't like making my responsibilities somebody else's responsibilities, if that makes sense. Would I do a season 5 Lab Rats? I totally would, but they're not going to. But that's okay. The kids are all grown up. Kelly's getting married. Isn't that wonderful? I'm so proud. It's such a lovely thing. We'll talk about that soon. Maybe I'll get her on and have her talk about it. But when somebody's working hard on a charity, especially one that's dear to their heart, you want to help as much as you can, but you also don't want to take away from the contribution that everybody else is making. So when I sang background vocals, Zach asked me, and by the way, hats off to Zach, just learning 60 Kiss songs for this weekend. I don't know what the hell. The man is a machine. But they did the entire Elder all the way through, him and and Todd, and I'm blitzing on the other guy's name because I only met them in passing. It's the first time I've seen them. Frankie, and that's gonna bug me now because I met so many people this weekend that I've never met before. So I have brain fatigue from that. But Zach was like, dude, anytime you want to come over and sing, like gang vocals, I'm like, just know that I'm going to come over on The Oath and and Under the Rose. Just know it. And he's like, dude, you don't be shocked if I don't put the bass on you and you just make you play it here. Just do it. So anyways, he was lovely about that. And so on the Elder, I came over and I sang with him and then I left. I went out and I would come over and sing on his mic and then I would get off stage. And so later, because these guys worked really hard on this stuff and they did all of Alive 2, 4 sides. That's a 4-sided record. It's 3 sides live and a studio record. And I was like, some of the people, moving around, partners, like different guitar players, whatever, didn't sing. And so the background vocals were a little soft, it seemed to be, if people didn't do that. So I was like, tell you what, set me up a side mic off stage over here, and I'll fill in the harmonies and gang vocals off stage. Because for me as a fan, I want the people listening to it to go, oh shit, that sounds like the record. That's amazing, right? And I know the harmonies from the album, and I know the melodies, and I know the lyrics. So off we go. So I did that for the second one. The stuff that I sang with them later, I specifically didn't want to don't put a mic on stage where I'm standing there, because it just feels like it would be a dick move. So I had them put it off stage and just sang in the wings. Next year I'll do something out front and on stage, but I felt like these guys worked so hard, I don't want to come over and feel like I'm muscling them out of the way. That was, and I feel like sometimes I'm the only person who gives a shit about this, but I don't care. Right? And then Andrea, I want to thank Andrea specifically for allowing me to commandeer her mother's kitchen to do the show on Friday. And I want to send big hugs out, not just to her and her mom, but to Jackson as well. Jackson the dog, who apparently does not like people getting in his face and does not like being picked up. And I did both, and it was lovely. And I miss Jackson very much. Jackson was a sweet little boy. He's a sweet little doggy. He's a good little boy. And that was pretty spectacular. Now, there's a lot to cover, no doubt. Before, welcome to the second half hour of the show. Like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, support the show. Now that we've gotten the weekend out of the way, we can start talking about what the fuck is going on Earth while I've been busy rocking out. And I believe me, I am. Hold on. Should I show you one last thing? Did I bring it downstairs? I did. So, Bruce's wife, bedazzles photographs. She does this art where she covers photographs in rhinestones, and then she uses glitter pen and glue and all this other stuff, and she layers makes 3-dimensional pictures over. So I'll show you. So she'll take the KISS logo, and then she'll isn't that nice? Look at that. That's a lot of work. That's not slapdash. Look how good that is. So she was selling them to benefit the charity, so I bought one because I was like, that's just awesome. And it's purple. So it's kind of like a mix of my favorite artists in the world, KISS and Prince. But isn't that great? Yeah, his wife does that. Bruce's wife does these, and the pictures she does are amazing. And then I got my autograph picture I took a picture in there because they were like, can you stand over there and take a test? I was like, yeah, I'll be your test too. And there's Eric and Bruce, and I got my signed picture. It's very cute. For their, sorry, staff chat. Yes, hold on. Is there somebody? 1 second. Checking. Where'd you go? What in the world? Hold on. I'm opening the staff chat. Fear not. Oh, yes. Here we are. Jackson was not happy you left. And he stayed in the little. That's so adorable. Hold on. Hold on. I'll show everybody the picture of Jackson. Hold on. This is everybody. This is Jackson. There he is. And apparently he missed me when I left because we bonded. We definitely bonded. And apparently when I left, he stared out the window on his lamb chop bed, which is really sweet. He's big on these lamb chop toys. He got a couple of them. He wears them out and gets another one. Super sweet puppy dog, and a rescue and all the wonderfulness. So that was that. Yeah, Jackson was really sweet. Like, I almost wasn't able to do a show because I was like, this is so the boy. This is the boy. Look at him. You know, it was super fun. Jackson had the sads. And I come home and Chip's got the sads. Because he's like, where have you been? So, okay. Where do we start? Holy smokes. Okay. Let's... Yeah. Let's talk about Syria. Let's talk about Syria. I don't know what the thing is up. I don't know what the is up. All right. Everyone miss you when you're not here. Even animals. Thank you, Katie. I try, try to make myself useful as well as ornamental, as my mother would say. So, okay. Who's a good boy? Jackson's a good boy. So, Assad. All right, I don't even know where to start with all this stuff because it happens so goddamn fast. So we've been talking about with Phil on Wednesdays and Saturdays over the last little bit about how, like, some of the stuff that's happening in Georgia, in Africa, and Kazakhstan and Dagestan a little bit as well. Because Russia has to pull its troops out of places. Armenia and Azerbaijan, they're having to pull their troops out of places to put them into Ukraine because, Putin's at the top of his game. And the second largest military in the world decided to attack a country of 40 million people, and take it over in 6 days. And fucking 3 years later, or, 2.5 years later, nothing. Yes, Romania as well, right? So, did you hear about the plane that went down in Syria? Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. So, just a lot, okay? So, after it's weird because there's such a transition. It's happening so fast, right? That, here we go. I don't know why this page always wants to be like half screened like this. But essentially, like, we're discovering, that Russia, while it was allegedly helping the Assad regime and us fight ISIS and all this stuff, then in many ways they were kind of running a secondary protection racket, and they were keeping the conflict going there to involve us, to extend ISIS's reign, all that kind of stuff. So as soon as Assad clears out and his security forces aren't there and the Russians have stopped supporting them, have bugged out largely, the U.S. military was able to hit the ISIS camps again. And the guy who's just sort of taken over is doing like an instant PLO. Like, it seems like, because the PLO started out, Palestinian Liberation Organization started out as a terrorist organization and then gentrified over the course of probably 20 years in the West Bank, right? Became the kind of, the old men of the West Bank, and were, originally, by the way, concocted by the Soviets, completely manufactured, but eventually got entrenched and started gentrifying in terms of their relationship, trying to, stabilize, move towards a two-state solution. The PLO became the adults in the room when they started out as a straight-up terrorist organization. Well, this dude, and I'll see if I can, I don't know if they reference it in here. I love how like they got up to Trump for they asked him for a quote, and he called the country a mess and said the U.S. should not get involved in the conflict. I'm like, dumbass, we have 900 soldiers there. Of course. Yeah, exactly. Arafat, crazy, insane alien. Right. I mean, like Yasser Arafat was a terrorist punchline in the early 80s, right? So anyways, that switchover. Yeah, Robin Trop, don't get me, Robin Top, I'm sorry, don't get me started on the Rogan special. There's nothing special about it, or maybe it's completely special in that regard. But this is relatively new because everything's new coming out of here. But the U.S. carried out a major round of airstrikes on Islamic State targets on Sunday, warned the terror group against trying to regain strength in the country after rebels took over the government. They've been, there's all these like splinter groups, and this guy's trying to be the moderating influence. We'll get to him in a second. The operation included dozens of airstrikes over 75 targets, including ISIS operatives, camps, using B-52s, F-15 jets, A-10 close-up air support. Is that the Warthog? Jesus. To ensure that ISIS did not seek to take advantage of the current situation to reconstitute in central Syria, according to a statement from U.S. Central Command. There should be no doubt we will not allow ISIS to reconstitute, take advantage of the current situation in Syria. Yeah, because they don't want people throwing like Yazidis and Christians and any, whatever, B-list Muslims that they don't like into wood chippers. All organizations in Syria should know we will hold them accountable if they partner with ISIS in any way. News of the strike come after stunning collapse of the Assad regime in Syria that has upended security. Okay, now, so this is the important thing. Fuck me. Let me open this up. Back to you guys, chat room. Let me show you this in a second. So, there have been lots of reports. Let's see. There are a couple of things I want to open about this. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, there we go. Let's see. See if we can open. Yeah, here we go. So this is an older article, but I think it's important. Okay, here we go. Whoops, I'm just going to slow this down. The Tulsi Gabbard Bashar al-Assad controversy explained. This is from 2019 because this happened in 2017, right after Trump took over, right? The first time, Hawaii Representative Tulsi Gabbard, remember when she was that? Got a massive popularity boost on her prospective path to presidency on Wednesday when she attacked fellow Democrats and Kamala Harris as Attorney General, but it wasn't long before an entirely different figure altogether resurfaced in her limelight, Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. After meeting the Syrian leader on a quiet fact-finding mission. That's adorable. A quiet fact, that's what she was doing. It was just a quiet, on the down low. Fact-finding mission in early 2017. What was significant about early 2017 and the shift in world power and perhaps the relationship that Russia has with Assad and the United States government at that particular time? I can't remember. Someone please remind me. His image in the U.S. as an alleged war criminal and human rights abuser followed Gabbard home and has been a frequent target of criticism for her. We're just getting started. 2.5 years later, she has refused to apologize for what she has argued was an effort to better understand the conflict in Syria. He gives public statements and does interviews all the time. You know exactly what his position is. There is no reason to meet with him behind the scenes to pick up what's going on. I think really it's just the only reason to really go over there and have a secret fact-finding, quiet little sit-down chin wag with him would be to help him cover the fact that they used chemical weapons on their own people. So, where various international actors, including the U.S., have helped fuel an 8-year civil war over competing geopolitical interests. Now, this is have helped fuel. This for everybody who thinks that like this weird thing about like oddly by helping Ukraine we're prolonging the war, where that conversation's come from, like that's fucking new in any way. It isn't. This bullshit's been around for a long goddamn time. And let me tell you something. If you can help and someone is being attacked by an aggressor and you don't, that means you're on the side of the aggressor. Period. If someone innocent is being attacked by someone who is hurting them, and you can help the person who's being attacked, especially without harming yourself, that is you putting your thumb on the scale on the side of the person who attacked in the first place, right? We don't help Ukraine. It's monetarily compared to the rest of our budget and all this stuff, it's no skin off our nose, and long term it helps, and they are the innocent victims of this bullshit. That means if we don't help, we're on Russia's side. Period. This argument, including the U.S., have helped to fuel an 8-year by not letting the Assad regime wipe out more Kurds with the help of the Turks and kill a bunch of Yazidis and other folks. That Newsweek interprets that as we have helped to fuel an 8-year civil war. We're not supporting somebody that is being attacked or is being wrongly targeted or is innocent or has no way of fighting back. No, we're helping to fuel an 8-year war, because what would happen if we weren't there? The fuel would burn out and the Assad regime could just fucking kill everyone. So Newsweek, any organization that writes an article like that, you better make a really strong case about how both sides started it before you pull any of that shit. Right? I mean, and think of all the hundreds of articles written over time about this kind of stuff, okay? New York Times does this all the time, has done for years, even back to the 70s. And as Americans became more post-Vietnam, post-9/11 in Iraq, as we become more averse to war, there's a tendency to just do these little soft pedal, seemingly anti-war statements. But in reality, this idea is like, if you guys stop teaching these women self-defense, the rapist would just get it over with. That's what that means. And to type those words, whether you think it's right or not, that's what you're saying. And you better be willing to stand by it. If I walk up to any of these reporters and they've written that sentence or anything like it in any of their articles, I want to hear the reason why they think that we should just let people be the innocent victims of it. Now, also, if you'll notice, in certain areas where we're not involved and there's just an absolute slaughter or something, it used to be in the 80s when I was a kid, like there was this kind of like, how dare the American people and the American government not stop this? Darfur is a great example in the 90s, right? Now, because post 9/11 in Iraq, we become so war averse and isolationist about stuff. The trending way of dealing with this, even amongst the quote unquote liberal media, which is why this argument falls apart, is, if we weren't there, this would just be over tomorrow. There's a movie called Tears of the Sun. And if you can stomach it, I recommend it. It's rough. It's sort of like Saving Private Ryan, but about a group of Marines that are there to airlift volunteers out of an area that's starting to fall to civil war. Yeah, it's a Bruce Willis movie, relatively low on the radar, but it's directly related to like the Darfur conflict and the like. Yeah, it's very heavy, Steve. But it's true. Like a lot of the stuff that they point at is true, and it's harsh and it's heartbreaking. And the whole thing is that these guys, ignore orders to leave all these people behind and just decide to hump them out, just walk them out because they can't get them all in the helicopter. They're there to get this doctor and these other people out before the army comes, this like rebel army that's going to kill everybody. And they can't just leave everybody, so they decide to walk them out. And the army is behind them and getting closer. This whole thing is a much larger force and stuff, and it's related to stuff that actually happened, and it's kind of borrowed from a bunch of different things. But it's the narrative of it is pretty well done. Yeah, Hotel Rwanda is rough too, but it's also again wasn't the actual owner of that hotel, it was they painted him to be a good guy, and turns out that was bullshit. But again, you conflate these multiple situations. The point being is that at some point, unless Newsweek or these people are going to make the case that the people who are being attacked deserved it, that sentence from a writing standpoint, from a news reporting standpoint, is a war crime. Anyways, okay. Gabbard, back to where we were. Gabbard again had to defend herself following Tuesday's Democratic debate, where she first accused Harris of having blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so, and prolonged sentences using inmates as cheap labor, which is also bullshit. Don't get me started on that nonsense. People, you know what the people who do cheap labor in prison get? They get credit for their time. Do they make what a regular person would make? No, but they get to leave prison sooner. What's more important to you, ladies and gentlemen, in your life? Money or time? I'll tell you which one. Whether you believe it or not, it's time. Because you can get more money. Once time has passed, it's gone. And so all the people who work in prisons for cheap labor, they do it to prove to the parole board that they can do a skill and they can have a job and they can get out, and that is their argument. That helps them do that, and they can build a skill or learn something, right? That's the point of it. So the idea that it's cheap labor is ridiculous too, because if they get sick in prison, we pay their health care. They get free health care. They get free government health care. And it's pretty rock solid if they'll follow their doctor's directions. Certainly better than a lot of people who have to pay out of pocket for it. So even the people who work in prison labor get room, board, food, and health care. And they are in there because they committed a crime. So there's this cheapens the entire fucking conversation. It spits on the face of victims. It's, and again, nobody's ever been paroled from a cemetery. The private corporations do pay. Well, the taxpayers pay them because of the jobs that they do. And then they pay for that. But even still, it counts towards your time. Right? It's slave labor and it should be illegal. No, it is not. They can opt out. You don't have to do it. It's not forced. And again, slavery is forced. That's why when they call Chinese forced labor, it drives me crazy, because it's fucking slavery. If it's optional, it's not forced. You can just do your time. Does that make sense? You told me how to get to the present, right? Does that make sense? Do you at least get where I'm going with this? Again, not as cut and dry. Very important to the conversation. Have a whole conversation about it and understand the group of people that you're talking about, and the fact that you want them rehabbed and entering society again, building a skill, working on a job, especially people who, end up being firemen, like the fire crews that work from prison. Those guys get out way earlier because they risk their lives doing these jobs. And they're like, okay, this person, they may have committed a crime. They may have done something horrible. They should probably be in jail for 20 years, but they're turning it around. And they didn't just find Jesus and sit in their cell filing appeals. You can work your time off. And you don't get a living wage because you don't need one. You have living conditions that are better than homeless people. You have a roof over your head and 3 meals a day and an exercise yard and health care. And you can work and get pay and get out of jail sooner. That's how it works. I don't know where this slave labor horseshit talking point came from. And I appreciate that it comes from a good space, but it's super weird. And if we dropped it as a thing that to snag on, there are so many more important things to focus on that need reforming in the prison system, for example, that we don't get to because everybody's hung up on this idea that somehow people are being conscripted like they're fucking breaking rocks, in 48 hours. So anyways, this was an attack from her. It's also a Russian talking point, by the way. You know, one of the reasons why America has, and I know I harp on this, but you know why America has more people in prison than any other country in the world? A, because we have more freedoms. There's a wide variety of freedoms we have, which leaves a lot of openings for criminals to wiggle into the cracks. That's a big reason. The other one is they live longer. We kill a lot fewer of them than the countries that put them in jail for the same thing. And if you go per capita, it's not even that weird with a lot of Northern European countries. They just have rehab programs, but they don't necessarily work. And a lot of the people they put in, they deport. It's a lot of like Polish immigrants and people like that they'll put in jail for a while and then they'll kick out of the country. It's the same thing. People are people. Systems have to be put in place, and they're all fairly similar. But what we could do is, once you get past this ridiculous, prisons don't pulverize rocks at all anymore. There aren't any real, I don't know of a single prison quarry that exists anymore. And if you do, let me know. I would love to hear about it. But like everybody thinks it's fucking, Rambo working off the damage he did to that city, smashing rocks with a hammer while he gets stronger or some shit, or Conan pushing a wheel. It doesn't work that way. Anyways, it's a Russian talking point. In the Russian system, you're guilty before you have to prove yourself innocent. You have to admit you're wrong. And then you can work your way back. I'm wrong, but I'm not as wrong as you think, right? So they want everybody to think our prison system and our legal system and our police fucking suck when they just round people up or push them out a fucking window. And that's where she picks this shit up and just drops it like a little, like that. Like, okay, you want to get into the conversation about how we fix this shit? I'm down. Right? That's the point. You want to talk about what's wrong with our prison system, what's wrong with our legal system, what's wrong with policing in this country? Let's have a deep and complicated conversation. But I don't want to hear shit from people who are just like, you guys suck, and then move on about it, especially when they're talking out of their ass like she was. Yep. So, among other things, during her time, California Trump, she said, the people who suffered under your reign as prosecutor, you owe them an apology. Again, the fuck are you talking about? So she drops these, and again, understand that everything that Tulsi Gabbard is saying is a Russian talking point. And the way those things work, hold on, wait, what? It's not just ACAB. Yeah, the fucking ACAB nonsense is horrifying. Just, you might as well say, like, because you don't like the healthcare system, like all doctors are bastards. Like, it's stupid. It's mean-spirited, it's cruel, it's dismissive, it's childish, it's grotesque, it has no respect for victims. And everybody who screams it would call for a cop the minute they needed one. So that means it's a lie to start with. It doesn't mean you don't reform things. It just means that if you're an adult, you have a real conversation about it. Okay? So anyways, Harris wrote a book called Smart on Crime, for fuck's sake. The idea is being tough on crime is a dumb way of looking at it. You have to be smart about it. It's weird. Hold on. I don't know how many people, I bought her book during the, here you go. Why is this over here? Why is the scrolly page like that? This is Harris's book. A Career Prosecutor's Plan to Make Us Safer. Smart on Crime was the name of the book. And like that, and it is a dense piece of work. It's moderative and smart and deals with the complexities of it. and the depth of it. But anybody who rolls through and wants to bumper sticker their way through shit as complicated as this can go fuck themselves. It means they don't care. It's the same as this remark from Newsweek saying, help to prolong the, the Civil War. Same thing. Morally, exact same thing. She is very pretty in that photo. You're absolutely right. So anyways, remarks were met with applause, both at the venue and across social media, or among the highlights, or whatever. Yeah, because it was a bumper sticker bullshit that triggered people online, and it was meant to. And there was a shit ton of bots, chasing this shit upstream. Make sure that when Cliff comes on, I can grab him. Referring to herself as a top tier candidate. That's hilarious. Harris, I think Harris was talking about that. I thought they meant Tulsi Gabbard referred to herself as that. Harris dismissed Gabbard's criticism by saying it was coming from someone who's an apologist for an individual, Assad, who's murdered the people of his country like cockroaches, who has embraced and been an apologist for him in a way that she refuses to call him a war criminal. I can only take what she says and her opinion so seriously. Gabbard later hit back, saying it was unfortunate, oh boy, also, and a disservice to voters in this country that she resorts to cheap smears. As if the other things were cheap. Yeah, okay. Rather than actually addressing her record, the issues that I have raised, and her pressed on whether or not she would consider Assad a torturer or murderer, Gabbard described her take as one of a soldier where I've seen the cost of war firsthand. Fuck does that have to do with anything? Sorry, was she in battle in fucking Syria? Did she fight alongside Assad in some, we were in a foxhole together? Get the fuck out of here. In Iraq, serving in a medical unit every single day, confronted with the high human cost of war. Right. So I will never apologize for doing what I can to prevent more of my brothers and sisters from being sent into harm's way to fight counterproductive regime change wars. Right. This is the other Russian talking point. We haven't since Bush 1 or Bush 2, we haven't engaged in these kind of regime change situations. That was the first time we'd done it in arguably since Iran. There wasn't an established regime at the time in, say, Vietnam or something like that. It was about who was going to take over. We didn't change the regime in Korea. We tried to keep the Soviets from taking over the place. And which would you rather live in, South Korea or North Korea? Obviously, right now it's a little awkward with their, but they have a legal system that allowed them to fight back against the leader's martial law. In North Korea, it's like that all the time. So anyways, regime change wars, right? That make our country less safe, and also, citation needed, that take more lives. Again, what does that mean? Why are we sending our people to fight, for people that don't look like us? And that cost taxpayers trillions more dollars. Okay, Syria and there was no way that Assad had a relationship that related to the trillions of dollars. That's Iraq. And it's not like Harris was pro fucking Iraq, so it's dumb. None of us were. So if that means meeting with a dictator or meeting with an adversary, absolutely I would do it. This is about the national security of our country. She didn't represent the country officially. Right? As a House member, she was just going rogue with this, with her quiet little meeting. So anyways, she resisted further attempts to goad her into denouncing the Syrian president. She won't. Yeah, who since 2011 has faced a rebel and jihadi uprising once backed by the U.S. and several of its Middle Eastern allies, including Israel, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, which is, by the way, this has a lot to do with Hezbollah's collapse in Lebanon, that they aren't there to backfill for the harder line ISIS guys that drove the rebels that took over Aleppo, more to the edge. Qatar and Saudi Arabia, but now, because once you take out the radical, like super extreme Islamists, the guys who've been fighting alongside of them can soften a little bit because they don't have to please those guys to keep them from being flanked from the outside because they're fucking nuts. And so the idea was that if you get rid of ISIS, or you can, they don't have as much control, these rebels can maybe be a more stabilizing force than possible. And that seems to be, I'm watching for Cliff in here. He knows to come on the video, right? Hope so. Anyways, so in 2015, just as the U.S. began realigning its alliance away from an increasingly Islamist opposition and towards a mostly Kurdish group of militias, Russia joined Iran in directly supporting Assad. This is the key. 2015, Russia backs Assad. 2017, a little over 2 years later, Tulsi is in Aleppo meeting with Assad. Quietly. Here he is. I see him in the background. Good stuff. And I think I should be able to hear him at this point. Yep. I hear some noise. Okay, so let's go into here. Pop this guy in here. Put the thing in here. And then, ladies and gentlemen, I can bring him to the show right now. Joining me for just half hour, our dear friend Cliff Schecter from Cliff's Edge on YouTube. Like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, support his show. And how are you? I was just starting to unpeel the onion that is Russia, Assad, and Tulsi Gabbard, and Iran, and Hezbollah, and the fact that, like, as the, to me it seems like, and this is where you have an unintentional dominoes is really what seems to be happening here, because Russia decided at one point that they needed a distraction. So they either asked Iran or goaded Hamas itself to go, hey, we'll pay you guys if you need to backfill this. We'll get you some funds and get you some guns and get you some shit. You just go for it. And then when they did, they were like, this will distract everybody in the Middle East. And it absolutely worked for a time. But then Hezbollah and others decided, oh, okay, it's go time, and they decided to, go for it. And then Iran couldn't allow that to happen to the Hezbollah fighters. They don't give a shit about the Palestinians, but they do care about Hezbollah's positioning and perhaps even the Houthis, because that's their flanking group, right, north and south. So they can fire into Israel, they can fire into the sea, they can control the the sea traffic that goes through there, and that gives Iran power that Saudi Arabia doesn't necessarily have in that situation unless they want to push back. So and what happened was, I think, after bless you. Yes, I'm allergic to World War 2.7. Anyways, so.
Me too. Yeah. Right. All the dominoes. You're so far. I'll join in when you finish. You're putting together the story very well.
Right. So they hit. So there are a lot of secondary dominoes that are attached, especially Syria, because Iran was using a base that Trump gave Russia in Syria to deliver weapons to Hezbollah and Hamas. They were bouncing shit through there. We literally. As part of that, like Iran barrage back and forth, we struck an air base, and Israel, Israel hit it a bunch, and then we hit the area around it, because that's where the ISIS guys were, where literally Iran was dropping off weapons that were supposed to go to Hezbollah. And when Israel decided enough was enough, because Iran had done that bigger attack and we knocked it away. We basically did some goaltending, as it were, on those missiles. The first strike on that, they decided to come around again, feed more weapons into them, loosen them up, and then try to do it again later would be the idea, from a tactical standpoint. And the Hezbollah guys either weren't organized enough, didn't have their shit together, or just too stupid, or there was infighting, or they were too overt. And of course the beeper attack and all that shit, because they knew who these fuckers were for a long time. Once you hit that, the Syrian linkage between Hezbollah and Iran and the people they've been working with, and Russia particularly, started to really splinter. And these guys just found an Ender's Game way to punch through into Aleppo. Because you didn't have Russians backfilling the Syrian government.
Yeah, I mean, look, all this in the way you said is connected. You hit most of the points. The key here is, and I've brought this up before, that I was working on a project to try to stop Azerbaijan, another ally of Russia's, with another corrupt kleptocrat, from entering this area, Artsakh, that had ethnic Armenians in it. Mm-hmm. And one of the main reasons that was happening is their leader, Aliyev, had been in Moscow the day before meeting with Putin. So that was the same kind of attempted distraction as the one you're talking about, which is why the people that were so one-dimensional on the Free Palestine side pissed me off so much.
Right.
Okay? It doesn't mean that Netanyahu isn't an evil piece of shit. It doesn't mean I'm quite sure Netanyahu couldn't care less how many civilians he kills. Okay? But none of these folks could look at this from a larger standpoint. I'm not going to even get into the fact that the Israelis were attacked and people were raped, murdered, whatever. That behind all of this, Russia is an ally of Syria's who's gassing their own people and mass murdering them in a bloodbath that will be up there, rank up there in history to keep Assad in power. Russia is backing, is backing him because they get access. Part of it, they get access to a naval base, and they get access to an airlift center where they can, send stuff forward to Africa. So they're losing both of those. A big strategic blow. That's part of the reason they support him. Part of the reason, again, is what's going on in Syria takes people's minds off of what's going on in Ukraine. Just like Hamas attacking Israel, just like Azerbaijan attacking the Armenians. But what ends up happening, of course, is Israel responds, particularly against Hezbollah, in a way, because it's hard to keep your terrorists on a leash now, isn't it? And they started launching all those rockets into Israel. Israel decided, we're not going to take this, and they blew the crap out of them. And so suddenly their proxies on the ground in Lebanon are basically destroyed. And they hit Iran back, and Iran ends up losing a key supply route in Syria through which it distributes weaponry to its proxies, who are these terrorists. Right. So Iran is hurt strategically. Russia is hurt strategically. A mass murdering piece of crap is had to run out of Syria.
To where?
It's not. I'm sorry.
To where? Where did Assad go?
Oh, gee, where did he go? I don't know. The same place Edward Snowden went, and every other Russian op has gone to.
Same fucking place Yanukovych fled to after he was deposed in Ukraine.
In fact, they could film a sitcom. You could have Assad, Snowden, and Yanukovych maybe in a house together, like a real world kind of thing. They're fighting like Puck and what's his face.
Just keeps reminding me of that old Robin Williams joke about Gaddafi, Assad, God bless you, get out of here.
Right, I'm headed in that direction. But point being that all of this was so much larger of a geopolitical plan that Putin was behind. Netanyahu played both sides because he's a scumbag. Erdogan played both sides because he's a scumbag, but used the opportunity to also join Assad in murdering Kurds who have been helped and released from prisons, that horrific prison, because they took Assad out. Christian Druze who were in Lebanon who were arrested and thrown in there for the crime of being Christian. If everybody just thinks this is just Jews against Muslims, it also comes down to Sunni and Shia and so much more. And that's why these people who are so simple-minded about this always pissed me off, because there was always so much more to this. This was always a Putin play to gain more land and to be distract in all these other areas where murder was taking place, so he could start moving into Eastern Europe. And they've lost two bases, as I said, to sum it up. Russia has. Iran has lost a key supply route. Hezbollah has been completely devastated. Hamas has been devastated. I wish people in Gaza were not harmed in the manner in which they were. I do think it could have been done in a much different way. And so I'm not defending Netanyahu, though I am defending Israel's right to respond 1 billion%, which you get to do when people come into your territory and mass murder you. And again, there
only
are
stopped
the benefits
because they didn't have a coordinated enough attack. They would have kept rolling if they'd had the resources and all that kind of stuff, which was what Hezbollah was ultimately supposed to do as the backup. The tough part about it is again, like I said, it's a really bad time for these secondary dominoes to start getting kicked over, because Russia needs every fighter they can get. They are borrowing them from North Korea. They are paying Africans to come fight in Ukraine, and they're
getting addicted to porn. Did you see that? That article with the North Koreans, their North Korean soldiers are going there and they're seeing porn for the first time ever, and they're getting addicted to it, and they're running away. They're going AWOL. Because
that would work
they've
for
never
me.
seen anything like this amazing Pornhub. I don't know if it's Pornhub there. It's probably Pornhubski, but whatever it is, they love it.
Yeah, well, and rightly
I thought
so.
it was a fun story.
In any situation, there's a myriad of reasons why these folks would want to break away. Just like, pretend I'm dead. Tell everybody you killed me. I'm going to stay over here, and then maybe one day that place will fall and I can go find my family again. But they want my mom and my dad.
And it harms North Korea.
Yep.
Because if some of these folks go back, again, I'm not going to make the exact comparison. You can't make the exact comparison. But people don't always understand that a lot of the reasons why civil rights happen in this country is we sent our troops abroad, and black troops from the United States, who often, especially in the South, but really everywhere, were treated like, at best, second-class citizens, went to Western Europe and were like, wait, there's equality here, and intermarriage, and people are treated equally. Well, North Koreans who go and are fighting and maybe get captured by Ukraine, whatever, and see porn, see whatever they see, and see there's a life outside of complete authoritarian, Orwellian control of every single thing you do.
Right.
If they go home, they may take that home with them. And so that's even another domino that could come from this. It is not a bad thing to come out of this.
That's true. And I hope they make it home. And it does have this, like, again, how do you keep them down on the farm once they've seen gay Paris is the concept, I suppose. One of the things that Tulsi Gabbard said about Syria in particular was, we have no business being there because that's not in the U.S. interest. Okay, so, and she says this in 2015, 2017, 2018, 2019. Okay, I want to say it was at 2012 or 2014. It was like there's so much happening during that time. But there was the Yazidi massacre that was happening, and they fled. The Yazidis, like, we covered them, like Obama, covered them with drone strikes, hit ISIS, and then they fled into an area in Syria. The Yazidis fled into Syria.
Right.
And part of the reason we were there was beyond working with the Kurds to stop ISIS and the caliphate from growing and all that kind of shit and taking over the entire section of the Middle East and turning it into just an absolute death camp for everybody else who wasn't exactly like them and didn't follow along, was that the Yazidis, which are like 400,000 of these people, driven, half of them driven into Syria.
It was a massacre. It's similar to what we did when we went and actually protected Muslims, which, again, I'm not saying, oh, wow, that makes us such wonderful heroes, but just to say, when people try to say, well, America hates Muslims or whatever, I mean, certainly there are plenty of Republicans that do, but when we went to Bosnia, and the sole reason was we were protecting people, it was stopping a genocide, which is a good time for me, at least, to use a military.
So she's bringing up this, like, it's not in the U.S. interest. Or like, okay, first of all, never mind the fact that, again, the Kurds were our allies in the fight against international terrorism and ISIS and the growing threat that was even more extreme than Al-Qaeda. Like, these guys... And
we just ditched them, and we just left them to die.
Trump just left them to die.
Horrific.
Right.
Yep.
Sorry, Bryce. Bryce is, Hal saying Syria keeps triggering my, Siri on my iPad. I'm sorry. That's a problem.
Hard
that's
to laugh when you're talking about genocide, but that one
it's a curious part of modern life. But the Yazidis fled. They're kind of similar to Coptic Christians as far as being a smaller minority religious group in that area. And one of the reasons why it's absolutely in the U.S. interest to be involved in Syria and all that kind of stuff is so that Assad, once they're in there, doesn't decide, oh, they're a liability and they're a waste of time and they're drawing ISIS to that part of the country where they are to wipe them out because they got this weird grudge against them. So let's just kill them or let them die or whatever. So we were protecting them, and that was part of our strategic interest.
I kind of feel like there's always an interest, if you can, in preventing a mass genocide, not just on the level of, we're human beings and we're not supposed to just be monsters that let people die, but also, as we sadly have learned, with Trump being reelected and all this stuff, when you don't punish bad people for doing bad things, they tend to not stop because they don't have anything akin to a conscience or empathy telling them not to do something. So the point is you don't just let a dictator without hitting back massacre a group of civilians. I mean, you need to send a message. Again, it's not always us who should be doing it. Sometimes you need to look at the local area, and it should be a local coalition, in that area. We worked with NATO, for example, when I brought up Bosnia earlier. You want a multilateral coalition. When we went into the Gulf War, whether you agree with that or not, at least you can say we were working with. I mean, Jordan was part of the coalition and others. But there's an interest in not letting massive numbers of people die, and the fact that you have to explain that to Tulsi Gabbard kind of tells you what side she switched to and where she was, she was buttering her bread at that point already.
Oh, and again, the argument I think is that that's how she always was. That everything that she did the entire time she was allegedly a Democrat was an act of performance art. It was always garbage. And one of the things you have to avoid, and why I'm so anti-jargon, and why I like complex conversations and the depth of this, is because it allows you it's like people use left-wing jargon like a password that allows you to just breeze past security instead of me going, wait a second, what do you really believe? Right? And in this particular case, it's abundantly clear. You can't just sit back and go, okay, she supported Assad. Her candidacy was backfilled by Russia. She's, been playing footsie in protection with Putin this entire time. She got a photo op with Assad, and now he, after being backfilled by Russia in his country, has fled to Russia to live out his days in pampered comfort until they push him out a fucking window.
Right. And let's not forget Xi, too. She spoke out in favor of the rights of the Chinese to massacre the Uyghurs. That's not our interest either. And also, if we didn't want Japan or anybody else to arm around there, it might anger China and give a wink on Taiwan. So essentially, if you could be against U.S. interests in any more ways and be acting in the interests of vicious, bloodthirsty, land-grabbing dictators, I'm not sure how you could achieve that anymore than she did by sucking up to the evil leaders of China, Russia, and Syria all at the same time. Quite an impressive feat, really, if you look at it.
And, one of the reasons there's been this big pump in crypto lately, and the reasoning behind it that everybody seems to think is because Trump's going to appoint this David Sachs to be his AI and crypto czar, and that they're going to be more crypto friendly. And there's probably a 3% element of that in stuff, but the rest of it is all the fact that there's a shit ton of money being shuffled around out of these countries as Assad bugs out, as as all this.
That's how you launder money really easily these days. Bitcoin is a great way to do it.
Exactly, and that's why it pumps and dumps all the time, because they only use it to move that shit, and then they move it out because they don't want it to be vulnerable to the volatility of it in the first place. And if they think the part that might be there is that they think with Trump in office, it will continue to grow, so they can leave it parked there for longer. But maybe a few months.
Also,
let's view the days.
Well, I was gonna say, first of all, you used to have to start a car wash like Walter White, as we all know, and now you've got. Sorry, I just had to. I couldn't help myself. Okay, so on a much more serious note, though, I mean they've spoken openly, right? And it may be a pipe dream filled with absolute garbage and the usual stupidity of Elon, who every time he opens his mouth is going to get a planet further away. Soon he's going to be telling us he's going to reenact Interstellar, I'm pretty sure.
Right.
So he's always going to achieve these amazing things, right? And so his whole thing is he wants to kill the Federal Reserve, and he wants the U.S. to not be the reserve, the dollar not be the reserve currency. He wants it to be Bitcoin, so he and all his little buddies and all their corrupt investments can be rich and launder money freely and do it and lie in elections and launder money into elections like he did here and all that kind of crap. That's their dream. That's the perfect world.
Well, the weird thing is that to keep, and this is always the thing that these assholes run into, is that we don't come by these regulations in government by accident. Like all this shit we've been through, we used to have raw milk. You know what I mean? Like we used to not have vaccinations. We used to not make them mandatory in school. And what happened? We had measles outbreaks that wiped out tens of thousands of kids, through U.S., Canada, and Mexico and shit like that. We had entire religious groups that had their entire future wiped out because they were anti-vaccine, and they just don't exist anymore, largely.
Right. Sorry to tread on you. You probably largely, whoever you are out there, overweight, white guy losing your hair who can't even walk up a flight of steps, but is going to defeat, the U.S. Army coming in.
Right.
But most of these things, and I'm not saying there have been bad regulations, and but as you said, democracy, the purpose, the theory is the public good. And there is a point where, I'm sorry, your individualism no longer overrides our right to the public good. You don't have the right to give my family measles. You don't have the right, you shouldn't, of course, in this country, in a lot of states you do right now, to walk around with a weapon of war, which is the kind of dangerous thing that
we had these standards. We had these standards back. Like there have been periods of time where we did not have these regulations. We did not have these standards, and the ramifications for the public overall and business at large was fucking enormous. The tuberculosis, the white plague that killed everybody because they were coughing on fucking buses and trains, and you had people
shirtwaist factory fire, and
they used to
go on and
walk
on
in
even in this country.
They used to walk in and snatch people off of public transportation for coughing too much because they're like, we're going to test you for tuberculosis, and they would just institutionalize you. And we didn't get to that part easily. That took, that was a buildup over a couple of years. Now, if we simply could just be inoculated against it, you wouldn't even have to have that situation. But these fuckers are going to roll us into a situation where that's going to come up again. Something like that. To put that toothpaste back in the tube.
Right. I mean, whatever they do, they're going to have control of the bureaucracy to a certain degree. I'm sure there's some hopefully embedded folks in there that will do their best to mitigate the damage. Yeah. RFK Jr. is going nowhere, and he's not going to get there. But it doesn't matter, because whoever they put at Health and Human Services, they'll find somebody who can get through the Senate, who maybe isn't as outwardly idiotic and brainwormed as he is, doesn't go around driving around with like a whale's head, like it's a freaking hat, like it's Napoleon's cap. But they'll find somebody who's a skeptic, is what they'll do, who has said enough of things that where they can sneak through, and then they're going to attack all this. And yes, if we do not Trump's come out and said it. Oh, we're public schools, we'll defund them if they, force people to have vaccines. He didn't say which vaccines. So I assume we're talking, let's just bring it all back. All the worst crap from the 19th and 20th century.
Yeah, so we're going to drop off. We're going to not vaccinate for pertussis, and fucking polio. Are you nuts? Of course they're going to do those. What he means is the COVID vaccine. And what they want to say is mandatory COVID vaccine. Right, that's what they're talking about. And largely, it isn't part of the schedule. It's an optional one like the flu. And it's still, and it will be, because it was a temporary thing, and they're going to pretend that they won. In the same way that there's not 20 million fucking immigrants that got into the country, and they're like, look, we've cut the number down to 10. It was always 10, dickhead. And now, I know. I'm going to cover it this afternoon, because I'm going to do the whole Trump, meet the press interview this afternoon. But part of it is him saying that, they're going to work out something with Democrats on DACA. And like, first of all, you fucking have to, because you got a 1-vote majority basically in the House, and even all your people aren't on board with a bunch of this nutty shit. And now you're going to walk it back. Well, how do you think, if you think we're worried about him keeping his promises and causing damage, imagine how the maggots are reacting to this, like the number of Indians that he's putting in his cabinet, which is freaking out the Nick Fuentes crowd, and the gay,
Treasury Secretary.
Yeah, Treasury Secretary. Right. And is Grinnell
the Soros guy?
Yeah, right. He put a gay Soros employee in charge of the Treasury, effectively, as the and I'm just enjoying watching
our
the
evil
pop.
Plan to embed him has worked.
It's the deep state. It's and I am the deep state, so consider yourself warned. There is, may you live in interesting times, I suppose. But a lot of these folks,
I always thought that was a load of crap, and I was good with the 90s, man. Grunge and peace and prosperity. Russia a democracy, even if Yeltsin was drunk all the time. I mean, who cares? There were our people. Yeah. I'm good with uninteresting times. I don't like this interesting times.
Well, that was, I was talking to somebody yesterday who was kind of like, not as far down the road as I am, certainly politically. Few are. But just, a rando Joe, as it were. And they were like, he was like, I never really loved Biden or whatever, but I was just glad to not have to, worry about the government, every day. Like, it was just boring. I'm like, yeah, make politics boring again. And he's like, exactly. Right. I'm like, yeah, I don't need a fucking reality show in my government. Like, there's enough drama on television. It's not like I'm at a loss for shit to watch.
That's what frustrates me, right? I don't want to know what's going on there. I would be happier if I can trust it's being taken care of by competent people who mean well, and I don't have to know about it. The problem is that it's going to be just the opposite of that, obviously, with these guys. So we're stuck with 4 years of just nonstop crap again. So thanks for that, every non-voter, Trump voter, Jill Stein voter, and the rest.
Right.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Oh, and all the people like the Michigan Muslim groups that were like, wait a second. You're like, really, dude? Really?
I mean, it's like the Michigan Muslim groups. Like I saw like the steel unions.
Right.
Right. Like the union guys that who were like, he said he was going to help us out. I don't get it. It's like, what don't you get? How long do you have to watch this man operate to understand that everything he says is a lie? I just, what is wrong with these people? All of them who believed anything.
Yeah, I'm amazed, by the way, and I think, Tulsi's on thin ice. I think her DNI hearing will be rough. And I think he will have a backup because he didn't want to put a woman in an important spot anyways. So it'll give him an excuse to look like he tried and then he failed. And he'll move her into the advisory position or put her in charge of some
Indian woman too. That's going to upset Nick Fuentes even more. Although I don't know if he gets TV where he is in prison right now in Illinois. But
all their paranoia about Elaine Chao. And then, right. And as we move away from China and towards India for pharmaceutical goods and for some manufacturing as the new shifting low income country for, massive manufacturing of cheap plastic, whatever. It's no surprise that our relationship with that country would spark a rise in Indian Americans finally getting sort of attention and stuff because it's seen as an ingratiating move by an administration to that country to go, hey, we have Indian Americans and we're putting them in positions and so we can work together and they'll you can talk to some of them and then you have cultural similarities and all this other stuff. But the right wingers are not liking it. They're
not liking it, and I think the squeeze will come from the right wingers. There may be a few even traditional Republicans left, very few, but even a few, who might actually care about national security and not just want to turn us over to Russia and whoever else who might have a problem with Tulsi Gabbard. And then you've got on the left, especially, let's see what comes out of whatever Assad files they got their hands on when they busted into the palace, because that could be interesting, where Tulsi shows up in there. I have a feeling. I think it's almost definitively she's going down.
Yep.
So
yeah, and they'll, the interesting thing of it happening while Biden is still president, is that we are still in charge of the intelligence community and the gathering of it and the military. He's still the commander in chief, and he's not fucking around. He's making every day count. So
exactly what you got to do.
Yep. And so none of that stuff is going to slip by just, and he's playing footsie with Trump on a few things. And it's been, angering Democrats, according to Axios and Politico or whatever. But in reality, like if you do any kind of like minor suck up, look at the handshake with fucking Macron and Trump. You know what I mean? If you do this, you can control him so easily because he's such a weak motherfucker and his ego is so easily plied. That of course Biden's like, make him think he's welcome and he's going to be fine or whatever. Just slap on. Oh yeah, buddy, you're doing great. We anything you need, we'll see. Yeah, snacks are over there. Meanwhile,
snacks are there. Extra pair of diapers in the back. You're
absolutely.
All good.
Here's some ketchup packets if you want to throw them in your own face. But
right, exactly.
But in all honesty, like he is definitely, while that's happening. While he's ingratiating himself to Trump and everybody's getting upset about it or whatever, behind the scenes, or I guess in the scenes, because it's actually just happening too. It's not like the Pentagon's not announcing shit we're doing. They're like, no, we're still I'm still president till January 20th, asshole. I'm going to act like it.
Yeah, why not? It works.
And try to, like one of the things about like the Infrastructure Act, and I know you got to go, and I want to appreciate you coming on for the half hour that you got, because I know you got somewhere to be.
I can make it for about another 5 minutes or so. If
excellent.
That's,
so Cliff's Edge on YouTube, check it out, subscribe, all of the above. But one of the things with that Biden is doing is, and you can see this in the Infrastructure Act very clearly, and in the CHIPS Act, that they set up these contracts that were loan guarantees and other stuff, and how they threaded it was very complicated. But one of the values of it being very complicated is it's very hard to undo. It's a Gordian knot of contracting. And so these companies are getting investment runs of billions of dollars based on the idea that they've got this government secondary contract. And if the government doesn't live up to that, they can sue because they operated in good faith on this thing, and there's no good reason to kick it to the curb. So in these chip fabs and in these solar factories and that kind of shit, and the EV battery factory in Marjorie Taylor Greene's district and shit, as they want to expand it, the government made promises, and they started borrowing money themselves based on that, or finding investors. Those investors and those banks would have a right to sue the U.S. government if they undid it without good cause, like there wasn't fraud in the company, any of that shit.
I even remember it from my pre-law classes. Promissory estoppel, I believe it's called.
That's right.
You go and you start spending money based on a contract and based on, sorry, if somebody then pulls the rug out from under you and does not have a good reason, has a reason to invalidate it, you're screwed. They can sue the hell out of the government.
And just I'm president and I say so isn't enough, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to form any contracts with the government ever, because they would just be invalid anytime the president kicked off or left, right? So what are you going to restart all of our fucking governmental contracts every 4 goddamn years and review all of them? What do you do the next year after you've done reading all of them again for no reason? It's just fucking stupid. But that's the Doge thing. So on that on the last note, your like the Assad thing, we will see that, like Aleppo and all this stuff will play out. It's going to be destabilized. It's going to be a crazy thing. There's a lot of movement in that. It is not. It's going to be jump ball for weeks there, if not months. It's going to be hard to tell where that lands. But
there's different factions even within there. Obviously, feel horrible for folks on the ground, because it's not going to be good. Getting rid of Assad is still the best thing, but obviously there's a power vacuum, and everyone's going to try to step into it, and it's going to probably be pretty ugly.
Yeah, and that's where we will be involved. And that's where we'll be involved. Israel will be involved. The Europeans, NATO, UN. The UN's going to start issuing, diatribes about stuff that are pointless, aimless, and don't involve any troops on the ground anyways. So what the fuck are they going to even read it about? It's like their stuff about democracy in Darfur and Sudan is like, they're like, they should really have that. Are you going to send in troops to help them establish it? No. Well, then fine, fuck off.
No. We're going to keep issuing very strongly worded letters, and I think that will get it done.
Yeah. So I appreciate you coming on. Obviously,
yeah, my pleasure, man.
We will have a ton to talk about over the next little bit. Be safe, take care of yourself, and I will see you in the near future, hopefully next Monday, for that kind of thing. And
and after that, if my math is correct, it's not that long after that you're going to be in the same region, neck of the woods, if you will.
I almost feel like we should do it. Do a show live together.
I 100% agree with that. We have to, I think.
Not a bad idea. So awesome. All right. Thanks, brother. I appreciate it so much. Have a great day.
My pleasure.
Talk to you later on. Okay. In chat room, there he goes. Ladies and gentlemen. Yep. Cliff Schecter. He had an appointment or something. It's not my business. It really isn't. You can only do the half hour a day. And I don't care why. I trust him. It's okay. I trust him to do his best. And he's got things to do. So yes, thank you, Cliff. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And you guys, I'm going to cut out because I have been up all night, sleep all day. You can tell my voice is dry from singing all weekend. But appreciate you guys. And like I said, I will be on earlier than usual this afternoon, probably by about a half hour or something like that, depending on when I can. I'm just going to prep some stuff and then come back on, and I need a nap so that I can actually think straight-ish. And until then, like, subscribe, share the show, etc., etc., etc. Oh. What a weekend. Anyways, I appreciate you guys, and thank you guys for being understanding on Friday and Saturday. It's great to be back. I miss you, as well when I'm gone or doing something else, and it's tough. I think the important thing. Hold on, if I can do this. still, or I don't know if that works. I think the important thing. Well, let me just put it this way.